Gonna see the hearts of the Eagle Nation breaking.
No. The hearts of the Eagle Nation will forever shine.
Alright, it's main from Akliv. Dan
Oh
has
my
a
gosh.
really awkward
Oh my gosh!
position.
He gets
Has
a
to
chance! He
sacrifice
gets
the
it
red
off!
tail,
He
but he
gets it
gets
off!
it.
Wait! No! It doesn't work! He's missing a purple! Wait! Wait! No! It's a 7! It's a 7! No!
It's
Oh my gosh! Please!
Power
Please!
7!
Oh my gosh!
But
It
look at
might
this
be
from
enough!
Akliv. Akliv has a response.
No! He
It's not
wins!
gonna be
He
enough.
wins the set!
It's not gonna be
Oh
enough.
my god!
Dan has
He
done it!
upsets
Dan has
Acklin!
done it!
Oh my goodness!
Dan has
There's
done it!
no
The
way!
upset of a
No!
lifetime!
Well, I don't know what to say other than it's been a really long journey. A lot of ups and downs, maybe more downs than ups until the very end. It was so crazy, like right at the very end I came through. But I I kind of feel bad for the other players because for me, if I didn't win, I would have been disappointed, but like the more I felt it was likely that I would win, the more disappointed I would be. So if I thought I had a really good chance to win and then I didn't win, I'd be really disappointed. So, and all the other players too, like, everyone's been working really hard. So that's why I feel a little bad that other people couldn't make it. But at the same time, I'm not like at all. I'm really happy that I made it. And like, that last round against Akliv is something that I'm pretty sure I'll remember it for the rest of my life. It was so crazy. But I talked about some of my feelings in the interviews in the match. So in this video, I wanted to talk more about like some of the strategies I was trying to come up with and some of the ideas. And one of the first things I wanted to get into was why I use Submarine instead of GTR. So I don't know if people know. And first, if you look at it, they look very similar, and in this exact build, they're pretty much the same. There's no significant difference between the two, I'd say. But the thing with GTR is, so like, anytime you have a column restriction somewhere, like in this column, you have to put a green, and then on top of that, you have to put a red. All of those are like risk points where if you don't get the color you need for that column, it can really interrupt your build or make your build a lot slower to complete. So like GTR, you need the green here. If there's a blue here, you need the blue here. You need the green here. You need the red here. That's a lot of column restrictions. So each one of those has the risk of really slowing down your build. And then in the current meta, you want the fourth color to be like here. So that'd be yellow or purple, I guess, but let's say it's yellow. So that's another column restriction. So all of these have the risk of making your build a lot slower because you might not get that right combination. So you might get blue red and you're like, I want to wait for blue yellow. So you put the red here. You might not get the green. You might not get the next blue. So there's a lot of risk of not being able to get the build complete as fast as you can if you don't get the colors. Now, for Submarine though, with the way I build it, for example, GTR you need the second red here, but Submarine you can put it here and your build is just fine. And you need the blue-green here in GTR, but in Submarine you don't even need a blue. For example, you could have yellow here and do the build this way, and then this could not be red, it could be like green, and now you're through the transition. So the reason why I think that's important is because in the current meta, for most players, once you get your transition done, that's where you start building your attacks and counters. So like you can build an attack up here that using multiple stacking, that idea, and then let me just build up to it. And then you have an attack that you can convert into your main chain as well with multiple stacking. So that's why people tend to try and build the attacks and counters on the transition, because you can then convert it into your main chain as well. And so if you can get that transition set up faster, you can be the one to drive the action where you're like pressuring the opponent. You're like, I've got this attack ready already. Like, I've got an attack. If you don't have a response, I can just send it immediately. If you do have a response, I didn't overcommit to anything. I can just keep building, and I still have my normal chain, and I can make a big chain. So you're like driving the opponent to have to be able to respond to you, and if they can't, you just win the round. And if they can, well, the round goes on, but you can still, like, you're the one putting the pressure on. So with Submarine, with all those like small adjustments that you can make, it makes it so that you can get that transition done a lot faster and a lot more consistently. Whereas GTR, like, you you'll pretty much get it if you force it every time, but even if you watch some of the like real top level pro players, they'll end up in situations sometimes where it's like they don't get this red for a really long time. So they build like this, they build a tail, and it's like they're like building up everything, but the build gets kind of awkward because they just never get a red for so long. And there's nothing you can really do about it. It's not about being good or anything. It's like if you don't get the color, you can't complete the build. So that's why with a build like this, you remove the column restriction there because you can like set up to have the red over here and then just throw in a different color and get your transition done. And you don't have that problem of like having one column in the middle of your build that's not complete, that makes it hard to build anything. So that's the idea behind Submarine. Now the idea behind the new build is kind of based off that same idea of getting through the transition first so that you can be the one driving the action and attacking faster but without overcommitting. So the build itself, like, I would consider this to be the transition, and there's various shapes you could go for. If you go for this shape, you're not putting a green here, you're putting a different color. Or a shape like the other shape is this one. So with this build, you just immediately go into multiple stacking. So you just put groups of 3 in any way you can. And then each of those, you can look to attack with them like this, or you can look to defend with them, for example, like this. So it becomes easy to make like an attack or a defense really quickly and just have it there. And then you should always beat the GTR player to the punch because of where the resources are, like the resources that you can spend with the build. So with this build, like, this is you're not committing a color here that needs to stay there. So with GTR, you're committing the red here and the green here, and you need those there to make your chain work. So like this is pretty locked in, and you usually don't want to use it to attack or defend with unless you like absolutely have to. So you begin attacking and defending up here. But with this build, the only part that's locked in is like here, kind of this, and then you can start attacking and defending all the way down here. So you're always going to be like a tempo ahead of the GTR player because of how the build works. You just have more, like, less of your build is committed to the transition, so more of it can be used for attacking and defending. like this. And then you can do the same thing where it's not very committal because you can look at this, and if it doesn't look like a good idea to send it, you can like do your multiple stacking and convert it into a main chain pretty easily. Or extend even more, like you can keep going up and build an attack on the higher level. Like this. So you have your attack, or you can convert it by continuing to do multiple stacking, and you have a lot of flexibility where you can place most of the colors. And in this example, maybe this is red. And so then my strategy was that I felt like I could get Akliv and Rick to send their main chain really quickly if I just didn't like early-ish attack. I wanted to try and do the earliest attack that I could where I could still out extend whatever they send. So I might make this attack and look if it's good, and it'd be pretty all in, but if it looks good, you can just win the round immediately with that. But if it doesn't, you can build up a little more, maybe do something like this. And then as you build up more, you make another attack, so because they had to they were under pressure to defend against their first attack, they're more likely to commit to their main chain or not be as flexible in their build. So when you do a follow-up attack or an attack later on, they're just going to main chain, and in theory you would have enough left to out extend them and win the round. But the problem is that it's so difficult. So the build has so much flexibility where if I play it in slow motion in the simulator, I can do crazy things with it. But when you have to play at absolute max speed the entire time, it's easy to make a small mistake somewhere when you're not used to your build. And you don't see the cuts as often, or you make small mistakes where it's like you make a color conflict and you can't build it the way you were trying to, and then you mess everything up because of that. And so it gets really difficult. So the difficulty goes way up when you're using something you're not that familiar with. And I actually practiced it a lot, but I couldn't get to the point where it's like I'm fully comfortable with all of the different variations because there's all the different shapes that have their own slight variations that or different problems with them or color conflicts or ways to use them. So if you make these shapes, how do you do it? If you don't get the reds and you do this, how does that change things? And you have to just instantly be aware of all of these things or you're going to make mistakes and get color conflicts or things like that. Or even the other variation, like if you're doing this one, that one doesn't. I mean, what can you do from that? What are the color conflicts? If you do this type of thing, a lot of it, I know, but I don't know it as intuitively as the builds I've used for longer. So it's I wasn't really able to use this build effectively in a tournament, but I think it has a lot of potential. It's just it takes a lot of practice. And I feel like it's really hard to read because if you do something like this and you just look at it, it's like, how long is this chain going to be if I set it off on the yellows or on the greens or the reds? How long will it be? Can you tell in an instant? It's not as easy to see as just the common people are more used to GTRs, so they can really easily read okay, this is what this player is doing, this is what they have, this is how much they can send. But if you look at this, it's hard to tell in an instant how much is this, how much is this. It doesn't change because the yellows connect. So But if you put the yellow here, it adds a link. If you put the green somewhere, it's main chain. It's like, if you take off any of those colors, though, it's not main chain anymore. So it's hard to process, like, how big is that chain? Like, because again, you could change the order of, like, where things are placed, and sometimes the order in which things pop. So, like, this one, how big is this one? How big is this one? But I think the build had a lot of potential, but I can kind of get the same type of thing with Submarine, where a lot of times the GTR player won't get the specific color to fill each column, so I can get ahead in the transition and be the one like applying pressure in the round. So that's what you'll see in the matches I played in the tournament. And I wanted to talk about my mentality was that I really wanted to not hesitate and make every decision just as fast as I possibly could and be really decisive. So that's not something that I'm normally good at. Even in everyday life, I'm very indecisive and I struggle to make decisions, but I was like, I'm going to make every decision as fast as I can. If I think it's a good decision, I'm just immediately doing it. I'm not questioning it, not trying to think, is there something better? Is this right? Which means that sometimes I would make pretty big mistakes because I just couldn't process fast enough, but I made the decision anyway, or I like didn't process very much. I was like, I think this is good, and I immediately made the decision, and then I would like a split second later, I'd be looking at it, oh, that's a terrible decision, and but I already committed to it, so it's like, well, there was nothing I can do, and it kind of showed up. I wanted to talk about this like thing that this mind game Aklev was doing because what I do is I'll know what the opponent is building in the mid game. So like here I would know Aklev has this really big 3-chain and it's also pretty efficient and clean where it's like easy to rebuild after. So I'd be like, okay, I really think Aklev is sending this really big 3-chain. I need to get to a really big 4-chain or an even bigger 3-chain as fast as I can to counter that. So I'm like, so that's what I'm thinking about here. I'm like, he's got this really big 3-chain and he's pressuring with it. He's going to send it. I need to counter it. So my instinct is like, oh, he's going to send that. I need to counter it as fast as I can. I need to counter it. I need to counter it. So then I was like, okay, I need to counter that 3-chain. He's going to send it. And Aklev knows that's how I play and he takes advantage of it. Because he's like, oh, look, Dan, I've got this 3-chain and now it's a 4-chain and I'm going to send it. He's like, look, I'm going to send this 4-chain. I'm going to send this 4-chain. And then he's like, waiting with the piece. So he's like, I'm going to send this 4-chain. Aren't you worried about it? And I'm like, yeah, I'm worried about it. I need to counter it. And then I try to like pressure the opponent. I'm like, okay, if I think the opponent's sending a 2-chain, or if they want to send a 2-chain, I'm going to send a 4-chain or a 3-chain and see if they can convert out and like beat it because most people struggle to do that. And a lot of times it's just hard to do. So it's like, oh, if Aklev wants to send a 4-chain, I'm going to send a bigger 4-chain, but then he would just connect to main chain and then I would have used too many resources to like catch back up and then I would lose the round because of that. And I knew that was what he was doing because it kept happening. It was like he's baiting me into like reacting too fast, and then he's just making me overcommit, and then he's converting into main chain. But I was trying to play as fast as I could and make decisions as fast as I could, so I would just go off of instinct, and that's what my instinct would tell me to do every time. So I'm like, oh, he's sending this 3-chain, and I'd make a 4-chain, and then he would just make main chain. I'd be like, oh. So every time I'd like send it, and I'd be I'd be like, "Why did I send that?" But then I I was like, "He's gonna do it again," and then I couldn't stop myself from, like, sending that. But even the like so you'll see some placements where if you look at it, they were, like, really bad, or some decisions where it's like they were really bad decisions, but even so, I would say overall, I made pretty good decisions. Most of them were, like, pretty strong, and I didn't hesitate, so I got more of an advantage from playing as fast as I could than the disadvantage I got from, like, occasionally making really bad decisions, which feels funny because, like, I remember a lot of rounds against Aklev, whereas, like, I just made a bad build decision early in the round, and it kinda messed up my whole round, and that happened multiple times, and I feel that a lot, but even so, like, by making fast decisions in the rounds where I also made good decisions, I was able to win a lot more of them, and instead of, like, being a little bit too slow or the opponent just barely draws the piece they need, it would be the opposite where it's like, I'm just fast enough to get what I need to get my extension, or I'm just fast enough where the opponent doesn't draw their final piece to get the counter off, things like that. So one of the it's like it's easy to feel like it's bad, like, to feel a certain way about, like, the losses where it's like you don't wanna play too fast because you might make a bad decision and just instantly lose, but sometimes it's just I feel like it's just more important to always be fast in this game, even if you make bad decisions sometimes. And then as you get stronger, you have to learn to be fast and make good decisions as often as possible. But you'll see that in like all the rounds I played. So another way that kind of played out is when I built attacks, a lot of times, like in previous matches, I would try and make sure it's a good attack to send or make sure it feels like it's going to work. I would try to like see what colors the opponent is drawing, think about like, are they going to get the counter off? But this time I tried to make the decision a lot faster. So it's like, if they get, I would be looking here, I want to send this really big 2-double, and I'd be already deciding, is it good or not? And I would say like, okay, if it's like 50% or better, if that's what I feel like the chances are of it working, I'm just going to immediately send it with no hesitation and hope it works. Because, like, here, if Yoshi gets a green and then a red and then a yellow, it's a really easy 4-chain, which would be a pretty good counter, and Yoshi would probably have the advantage in the round. But you don't always get those colors, so there's a chance you wouldn't get that. But if you get yellow-green, it's a 3-chain, and I probably have a small advantage. And then sometimes you don't get the trigger at all, and then I might just win the round. So I'm like trying to evaluate, do I think it's, better than 50% to just send it? I don't want to take bad risks all the time in this matchup where I like need to win. So I was like, okay, I think it's a good chance, so I just immediately send it, and then he doesn't get the piece in time. So then I'm looking again, like, okay, do I think I can win the round here with an immediate follow-up, like on these reds? And I looked and I was like, no, he can still dig. So I immediately decided, okay, don't overcommit to that. So I made a smaller attack instead of like the big commit, which I often do. And you'll see that in some rounds too, where it's like I do a bad follow-up because I couldn't read fast enough if the opponent could dig or not, but this time I could read. I was like, okay, he can dig this, so I can't do a slow follow-up. So I won that round, and basically that's what was happening every round. So So like this one too, I was looking here and it's like, okay, it feels like if I can get this attack off, it's better than 50% chance to win. So if I get the opportunity, just send it immediately. I was looking, I was like, okay, it still looks like that. If he gets a good draw, he gets 2 greens and 3 purples. He has the easy counter and he'll be at a big advantage. But if he doesn't get that, then I might just win the round. So I think the odds are in my favor. I'm just going to go immediately and hope it works. And he didn't get the colors in time. So that's one of the big differences that I think mattered a lot on this day, because I was like not hesitating at all. As much as possible, I was trying to be decisive and act instantly. And there was one other thing that I thought was really funny, was that I actually mostly practiced the new build for this event, and I didn't really practice my old build very much, but I mostly used the old build in the event. And what I noticed coming into the event was that like uh, I was like I was only practicing the new build, but I would play against people for practice and use my old build pretty often, and it felt like I did better with the old build the more that I practiced with the new build. So I was like, well, in that case, I guess I should just only practice, like continue only practicing the new build, and I might just do better with my old build as well. And it kind of felt like that worked out that way, whereas like, okay, I'm just gonna practice this build, and then it's like, okay, I do better now with my old build. I was like, huh, well, I guess that's working, so so it worked, I guess. But then the last thing I had to say for this video was like, initially I thought I was gonna like take a break for a while from Puyo, but then winning the winning the finals in that way was like so moving, I guess. It was so inspiring that it's like I actually just want to play a lot more. And also now I feel the pressure to like do as good as I can to kind of represent, you know, the English Puyo community and the players that I beat. So I don't want people to feel like, oh, I would have done better if it was me playing. So I want to have a good showing and maybe pull off some upsets, maybe win the whole thing or something. I don't know, see what I can do. I don't think that'll happen, but I can go for it at least. And then, so I'm probably going to be playing a lot and practicing a lot just to try and um, have the best showing I can in Japan. And I feel a lot more motivated to play now. A lot more like I just want to play the game and get better. So we'll see. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say. So